So Meta just announced they will be laying off 5% of their workforce in the next month. Citing low performances and AI advancements, it seems that these layoffs will likely create a chain reaction across the entire industry. So to be blunt, as designers and tech workers, we are no longer in a hot labor market. Now, I've been a designer in Silicon Valley for 12 years, and this is the first time I've seen such a rapid decline in hiring. And as a result, I've been trying to desperately understand the impact this will have on both myself and my friends. And during this exploration, I have found this video by Boyles titled "Big Tech Doesn't Want You Anymore" to be incredibly valuable. From lavish parties and day-in-the-life techie videos to perk cuts and mass layoffs, this video explores a whole lot of interesting topics. So I will be watching this video today and doing my own commentary of my experiences in this industry. So if you want to understand the fragility of your tech career or just how to understand how to stay relevant, I think this video will be good for you. But before I get into that, I highly suggest checking out more of Patrick's videos. He has an amazing knack for describing financial topics that affects all of our lives. And he's pretty hilarious. So with that, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and let's go.
Big tech is slashing hundreds of thousands of jobs and blaming artificial intelligence, but there may be more to the story than that. Intel just announced 15,000 layoffs yesterday, causing their stock price to plunge. Big tech, who for over a decade provided all sorts of employee perks, may no longer be the dream place to work. In 2009, a friend of mine who had quit his job in investment banking joked that in the wake of the financial crisis, being an investment banker was like being an airline stewardess. The job used to be glamorous and well paid, and now it was neither. After the financial crisis, central banks around the world slashed interest rates to near zero, which was bad for banks but good for startups and the tech industry. According to the St. Louis Fed, over the 5 years after the financial crisis, jobs in the tech sector expanded by more than 20% compared to 11% job growth in the overall US economy. Tech sector wages, which were already high, grew at roughly 5% per year over the same period. It became the place to be. While other businesses offered employees benefits like pensions and healthcare, tech firms attracted staff by offering perks like free food, offices that looked like playgrounds, nap pods, the ability to bring your pet to work, on-site massages, meditation rooms, office jam sessions at Spotify, and something called disco yoga. Google and Facebook offered employees a free laundry service, which is only so much of a perk when their employees mostly wear shorts and t-shirts. I don't know, maybe the laundry service went to their homes and picked up their dirty laundry from their bedroom floors. That's probably how it worked. To seem relatable, tech workers began posting day-in-the-life videos on social media, mostly showing themselves playing ping pong and eating berries at work.
Hey guys, welcome to a day in my life as a 26-year-old working in tech in Manhattan. So I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go to Equinox, then I get in a cab and head to the office. The subway is really scary since there are tons of lower class people who don't work in tech, so I take the cab everywhere now.
In 2020, the global...
Okay, real quick. This is, minus this pure classist bullshit, I'm not sure if she was trying to be ironic. I don't think she was. This was absolutely true. All of these perks that I had access to were insane. Free laundry, you had to bring your clothes to the office, but for the most part, it was, you just dropped them off and people did them for you. It was absolutely insane. And this just shows you the amount of money they pissed away at these large tech companies. And during this time where I created my career, everyone was going after you. You felt like you were $1 million and you thought that this would last forever. But yeah, let's continue.
Pandemic transformed how people lived, worked, educated their children, and spent their free time. The world rapidly moved online, and the surge of e-commerce and consumer tech spending led to massive revenue growth at big tech. Central banks around the world slashed interest rates even further, and tech firms took that cheap money, significantly stepping up their investments in moonshot projects like self-driving cars, metaverses, and crypto. Facebook, who went so far as to change the company name to Meta to demonstrate their commitment to whatever the metaverse is, hired a ton of people during this period, with
And
headcount
now they've
up
been cut.
60% by the end of 2021. During this boom period, the mega cap tech firms' combined increase in headcount was 35%, or almost 130,000 new jobs. And the lavish deals that they had given their employees redefined employment expectations in the entire economy. The big tech firms were already rated as the best firms to work for, with Google or Alphabet having been ranked number one 8 times between 2006 and 2018 on the Fortune list of the best companies to work for. Justin Fox at Bloomberg points out that there had been an acceleration in hiring even before the pandemic, which explains why tech CEOs might have thought that the growth that they were seeing during the pandemic represented a new normal rather than a temporary effect. By the end of the pandemic, they had hired almost 200,000 more people in the US than they would have if they had stuck to their prior hiring trend. The tech stock sell-off that started.
So yeah, real quick, during this period, the question I was asking, and a lot of people were asking, is like, why are they hiring so much? And the answer that we really got was they were hiring not to build anything interesting. They were hiring all the talent for them not to build anything interesting for other companies. And these companies seem to anticipate all of these market changes during the pandemic. But at the end of the day, it was just an arms race to gobble up as much talent as possible so no one else could beat them to a certain extent. So yeah, super interesting.
In 2022 put big tech companies under pressure to improve their bottom lines, and they laid off some of the excess staff that had been hired to meet the pandemic boom. Twitter led the way with layoffs when its new owner reportedly laid off half of the employees within a month of taking over the company, breaking the taboo of tech layoffs, making it easier for other big firms to lay off staff without standing out from the crowd. Big tech has been making significant cuts, and the layoffs don't seem to be ending. According to layoffs.fyi, a website monitoring job cuts in the tech sector, there were 165,000 tech sector layoffs in 2022, 260,000 in 2023, and there have been 125,000 so far this year. The tech firms are still reporting good earnings, and the AI boom is still in full swing. Overall jobs growth in the United States has been strong, if slowing slightly, and workers' pay has been outpacing inflation. So why are tech workers losing their jobs? Where are they going, and which roles are disappearing the fastest? Is working for big tech no longer a dream job?
So this is a good question. Is big tech still the dream job? Let me know down in the comments if you think working at big tech is exciting or as it used to be. But working at big tech was like going to an Ivy League school. You wanted to get in there not just because it's a cool place to go, but also because of what it meant on your resume. And I still think that is the case. You still get paid more at these big tech companies. You still have more perks. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's as exciting as it was, back in 2014, 2015. And the reality of working at these larger companies is actually very, very mundane. And the majority of the people I worked with at these big tech companies maybe worked 15 to 20 hours a week. And while that seems really, really cool for the masses, it wasn't sustainable. But what we're starting to see at the beginning of 2020, 2021 is that workers were no longer these amazing commodities. They were economic pawns or tools for these large companies. And that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. So let's continue.
2024, the YouTube and LinkedIn trend of posting day in the life of a tech worker videos reversed course. The new videos were called A Day in the Life of an Out of Work Tech Worker, and they seemed a lot less fun.
Big life update. I got laid off yesterday.
For some reason, these young tech workers hold their microphones in their hands in their videos, which I worry makes them less employable, as if you don't understand the technology of a mic stand, which is a stick, you don't seem that up to date with technology. I mentioned this issue to a friend who told me that young people do this to seem more personable, so I thought that I would give it a go. Hopefully, I seem more relatable now. The audio quality should still be good because, it's not actually plugged in. I'm trying to seem relatable, not to have bad audio.
So, real quick, well, the day in the life video stuff was cringe as hell, especially the first video we saw here. But what's been interesting is the evolution of I got laid off is now it went from to that to quiet quitting to loud quitting, and loud quitting to me is the most cringe thing, like self-righteous bullshit I've ever seen. And if you want me to do a video on that, we can do that as well. But for the mic thing, I could attest that holding a mic, especially a shitty lavalier like a Rode or something like that, you're going to get better audio. But someone holding a Yeti like that just seems annoying. But I'm an old fart, so let's keep going.
According to the FT, a lot of the tech layoffs are happening as companies are reshuffling their resources in order to invest in new areas such as generative AI, while showing shareholders that there's a continued focus on cost discipline. They highlight Meta, which cut more than 20,000 jobs since late 2022, who said in February that net headcount additions for the year will be minimal, even as they made significant investments in generative AI, which would involve securing talent. The result has been a wipeout in tech jobs, and for the first time since the dot-com bubble burst, IT unemployment is actually higher than US unemployment overall. I'm sorry, I have to stop with this microphone thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'll put a link to a mic stand in the video description to help out any of my younger viewers who aren't familiar with how that works.
Okay, so for the most part, he's absolutely right here, but I want to call out that AI being used to fire people or is basically just that, an excuse. AI right now is a abstract term people are using to justify investment and all kinds of things. But right now, essentially AI is not even ready to start taking as many jobs as they're proclaiming. I think that just like using the term AI, this faceless figure, just helps people justify reversing a mistake of their extravagance, and it helps them juice their numbers for their stock. However, if you are working as an AI engineer, you will be basically paid a shitload, but those jobs are minimal. So yeah, whatever. Let's keep going.
The tech sell-off of 2022 led tech companies to evaluate their workforces and realize that they had a lot of dead wood. And if they had leaner organizations, they could be more profitable. And as they cut staff, their stock prices started to rise. According to the Washington Post, as stocks have risen, spirits in the San Francisco Bay Area, the heart of the US tech industry, have only fallen further. The layoff announcements from big tech companies all contained variations on the theme of "we hired too many people during the boom years." While things are tough in the tech sector, the BLS data shows that the ratio of job openings to job seekers is still quite good. There are 8.2 million job openings in the United States and only 7.1 million job seekers. Unfortunately, a lot of the job openings are in areas like education, healthcare, hospitality, transportation, and utilities, not tech.
So this is really interesting. So working at large companies and stuff like that around the Bay Area, I did see that it was over bloated. And the people who usually get cut first are usually going to be sales, middle management, recruiters, but they were added structurally to keep the business growing quickly. So all of this bloat was absolutely insane. But this wasn't just to those kind of hires either. Like, for instance, when I worked at a large company, I had 500 designers for over 50 products. Now, all of that could have been done with about 250 to 300 designers. You didn't need 500. And I think in the near future, AI will be able to reduce that from 500 to about 100 or 200. Now, while these firing and hirings weren't done maliciously, basically workers are treated as disposable income for short-term profits. The silver lining is that a lot of small companies now have access to skilled talent from big tech across the United States. So you no longer have to live in San Francisco, New York, or Seattle. You can live in a lot of different areas. So that is definitely really, really cool. So let's keep going.
According to the press, a lot of the tech layoffs have been in ESG areas, where the big tech firms have started abandoning their woke policies as part of their cost cutting. The New York Post reported that Microsoft laid off a team devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion after spending millions of dollars on the initiative. One of the signs of the overhiring may have been the woman that they hired away from the land registry who would read out the property title before every meeting.
It's ridiculous.
First, we want to acknowledge that the land where the Microsoft campus is situated was traditionally occupied by the Sammamish, the Duwamish, the Snoqualmie, the Suquamish, the Muckleshoot, the Snohomish, the Tulalip, and other Coast Salish peoples since time immemorial.
Maybe I should look up who owned this office before me and say something nice about them at the start of the video.
Some
I
bullshit.
don't know how people do this stuff. Anyhow, last year, Alphabet and Meta, or Google and Facebook, reduced the scope of their DEI programs and cut staff. Zoom, Snap, Tesla, DoorDash, Lyft, and Wayfair have also downsized their DEI teams.
I called
The
it.
Post reports that
I called it.
DEI-related job postings had declined by 44% by mid-2023 compared to the same period in 2022. Despite these layoffs, Microsoft told the Post that their diversity and inclusion commitments remain unchanged.
It's bullshit.
Merrin Somerset Webb wrote in Bloomberg earlier this year that ESG and DEI policies had turned out to be low interest rate environment luxury goods. She highlights the pullback from these policies across both the public and corporate sectors. In the UK, the Financial Reporting Council just opted against including ESG requirements in the UK Corporate Governance Code, and BlackRock's CEO Larry Fink, once a champion of ESG, rarely mentions it anymore. Mentions of DEI and ESG in company earnings calls have plummeted too since interest rates started to rise, as has their prominence in corporate presentations. A recent paper from the University of Copenhagen suggests that even amongst retail investors, ESG investing is a luxury good, where demand for it increases disproportionately with the scale of inherited wealth.
So I'm going to be cynical for a second. Working at LinkedIn during the George Floyd time was really interesting. We saw this in full swing. Even though during this period, I knew a lot of the callouts and stuff like that were more manipulative tools, the DEI and ESG policies were always visibly shown to be political tools against the workers. And this just shows as the belts tighten, all of the services that they think they can get rid of first are the ones to go. So I don't think that they inherently believed DEI was important. It was basically just another perk like snacks or laundry services. And as you saw with Microsoft there saying diversity is always important, these are just empty words to try not to piss off their employees. But at the end of the day, they're here to make money. They don't care about you. They don't care about diversity. They care about the bottom line. And we just need to be realistic about that. Okay? So I know it's harsh.
Tech, just like finance, can be a boom and bust industry, where workers are paid well, but there is a lot of career volatility. People who have been in either industry for a full market cycle are usually aware of this and know to save their money when the times are good. I'm reminded of a story a friend told me of hiring at an investment bank back in the late 1990s. He said that it was so hard to hire at the time that he found himself making offers to the type of candidate that he would have never considered in prior years, as he just needed to fill seats. During the slowdown of the early 2000s, he then let all of those people go. During the US tech sector's last high-growth phase from 1990 to 2000, national employment in the tech industry
Every 10 years,
shot up
like
by
clockwork.
36%
Like
over
clockwork.
the period, according to Federal Reserve data. Average weekly wages for tech workers doubled, rising by 102% over the decade. At its peak in 2000, tech employment accounted for just over 4% of total private employment. When the dot-com bubble burst, technology sector employment declined rapidly, with significant net job losses for 4 straight years. By the time it bottomed out,
Okay, so real quick, as a millennial, I came out of college in 2008, 2009 into the recession. It's very similar to what Gen Zers are dealing with right now. But I got my career going maybe in 2012, 2013. And during that time, things just started exploding. I never saw the drop. I always came in at the drop and I started to rise. So this is the first time in my career, millennials career, that career volatility was a thing. We always thought it was going to last, but we never saw it coming. Now Gen Z is kind of coming into where we were in 2008, 2009 with the potential growth of AI. But I think this downturn could be more chaotic than the dot-com bust, because I think there's a hyper saturation of designers and techies going into the market expecting high salaries or placement that I don't think is going to ever be of what it was. Cool.
In 2004, the sector's workforce had shrunk by almost 18%, and tech employment declined to 3.4% of total private employment. From 2010 through to 2022, job growth in the tech sector once again hugely outpaced job growth in the rest of the economy, and most tech workers under the age of 35 have never seen a slowdown. The FT reported earlier this year that the tech layoffs in 2024 appear to be more strategic, as job cuts in 2024 have come alongside active hiring. Meta, which cut more than 20,000 jobs since late 2022, said in February that net headcount additions for the year would be minimal, even as it's made significant investments in generative AI, which would include securing talent. SAP announced a company-wide transformation in January that involves 8,000 layoffs as they increase their focus on AI. They said that their staff numbers would stay about the same, but that they would be reskilling. This reskilling process is extremely painful for tech workers, as it usually involves being laid off and requalifying. I saw a LinkedIn post earlier this week on how there are both too few and too many software engineers right now because of a huge skills mismatch in the software development industry. The author wrote that there had been a huge boom of people coming into software development and training as web developers, but companies now want to hire people with skills in AI, machine learning, data analysis, and things like that. The writer argued that big tech needs to hire the best people and then train them as necessary, as it might be too disruptive turning over your workforce constantly.
Now, I think that this will be another material good in the near future. So basically, we all need to reskill every couple of years. Now, everyone dreamed of this life that our parents had or their parents had, of what I called the gold watch. And everyone wants their gold watch. That means you start a job, you work all of your career, and at the end of your career, you get a gold watch and you get a retirement and stipend. That's gone. I have a feeling that everyone in their career will have multiple different types of careers with multiple different skills over their lifetime. So like that is something to consider as well. And I think that this needs to be like built into your work or into your daily lives. And the harsh reality of this as well is that a lot of these new skills cannot be taught in colleges because colleges are just fundamentally too slow. So if you go to school, which I think is great, I think if you wanted to get your bachelor's, that's awesome. Just realize that it's not going to be able to teach you all the new skills you need for the marketplace. You need to find those on your own. And so that is something to consider. And I've always been a huge proponent of learning new skills. So yeah, let's go.
While layoffs are happening at these high-profile tech firms, they aren't happening in every department. According to Robert Half, a recruiting firm, a sizable portion of the layoffs at big tech have not been technology professionals, but those in other departments. 365 Data Science looked into which roles were most affected by the tech layoffs and found that HR specialists and recruiters made up almost 28% of the layoffs.
Makes
They
sense. They're
also found
structural.
that this group was finding replacement jobs most quickly. This makes a lot of sense, as these people are not really tied to the tech industry. They can work at any big firm. The researchers found that 19% of the laid off tech workers who found new jobs had moved to smaller software development firms and 13% had moved to internet companies. They found that the majority of rehired workers continued their careers outside of tech. Among them, 10% moved to financial services, 8% moved to the services industry, 7% to consulting, 6% to manufacturing, and 34% to other industries. Because the majority of tech jobs are outside of the tech industry and tech skills are still in high demand in other industries, many of these people are doing just fine, but possibly struggling a bit with the culture clash of no longer getting to play ping pong and eat free berries in the office.
I love how belittling that sounds, but it's true. The question I have in my head is like, for developers and designers, are our skill sets diverse enough? Years ago, I would have said it would be safer to specialize in a skill set like design systems or, all kinds of things. But now diversity in skills or being a generalist is actually more important than ever. So, like, not just being able to design mobile applications, but also be able to do different mediums such as video, audio, 3D, print, and now AI. And I think you need to be agile as a creator to always be valuable. But that takes a lot of time to develop. And colleges, again, can't keep up with that. So, I mean, we have to be lifelong learners at this point, and you can't just stop because you don't want to do it anymore. There is no security in that. It's all basically, you have to be as diverse and valuable as possible to beat out the competition, especially in a market that is this saturated as it is. So let's continue.
Unfortunately, the researchers found that the majority of laid off tech workers are still on the job market, competing for the type of roles they'd recently been laid off from during hiring freezes and continuing layoffs. These people are mostly highly qualified with a lot of work experience, and we'll have to see how long they remain on the job market or if they switch careers. A study from the Brookings Institute found that tech sector jobs have started spreading out around the country since the pandemic. San Francisco and San Jose disappeared from the list of metro areas gaining the highest shares of digital employment. Replacing them have been metro areas like Dallas, Denver, Miami, and Salt Lake City. A report on pay
That's
trends
cool.
from
That is cool.
ZipRecruiter found that 48% of 2,000 US companies surveyed lowered pay for certain roles last year, and 41% of employers said that a position has gone unfilled in the past 6 months because candidates wanted more pay than the company was able to offer. According to the report, companies are not just taking advantage during a difficult job market to cut costs. In some cases, stagnant and even lowered salaries are the result of a reset for a pandemic-era surge in compensation where companies were scrambling to fill roles during the Great Resignation. This phenomenon of falling wages is being seen mostly in the United States because of how its economy rebounded from the pandemic. During the rebound, wage growth in the United States outpaced that of the UK and Europe. And now that it's resetting, the pinch is being felt most in the United States. One of
The cruel reality of where we're at right now is that we will never be the same to where we were 5, 8 years ago. Those perks will dwindle. And another harsh reality is that seasoned professionals will likely be in the best position, but we're going to get paid a lot less. But this also means entry level jobs will be harder to find. And as AI enters the workplace, technical skills are going to become more and more valued. Skills like data analysis, design system thinking, and light development will leave a lot of people behind. So if you're one of those people that have those skills or you don't have those skills, let me know with a comment down below.
the perks of working at a hot tech firm during the boom period was getting a chunk of your compensation in the form of stock options, which a lot of high growth tech companies like to think of as being free rather than as a deferred expense that's eventually paid for when the options vest. We see this cost today in the massive stock buybacks which have to happen at firms like Salesforce to keep their share count from rising and earnings per share from falling. Bloomberg reported in May that insiders at Magnificent Seven tech companies have been selling their shares after going 9 years without any significant sales. Senior management may be less bullish than the general public are. The Magnificent Seven tech stocks have risen nearly 150% since the start of 2023, partially because of investors' excitement over artificial intelligence. Jeff Bezos netted about $8.5 billion selling Amazon stock over a 2-week period in February. This was his first sale of Amazon stock since 2021. Mark Zuckerberg sold $1 billion worth of Meta stock last November. Sundar Pichai of Alphabet sold more stock in the first few months of this year than in all of 2023. NVIDIA director Mark Perry sold more stock at the start of this year than in the previous 2 years combined. And Apple chairman Arthur Levinson filed in February to sell his biggest block of stock in more than 20 years. This isn't just happening at the companies that are doing well. Tesla's chair, Robin Denholm, filed to sell about $52 million worth of stock this year, her first sale since 2022. Some of the luster has come off of big tech in recent weeks, with the Nasdaq more than 11% off its high from a few weeks ago. The downturn followed underwhelming outlooks from the biggest tech companies, along with a bad jobs number. Intel lost more than a quarter of its value this Friday after announcing plans to slash headcount and capital spending as it suffered further setbacks in its slow-moving turnaround plans. Its price is below where it traded in 1997.
Okay, so one thing that I wish I would have known in my career earlier is that, especially if you work for large companies, is that your stock is a lot more important than just the money it brings you. It also shows the volatility of your place within a company. So when everything was good and people were getting paid a lot of the money we got was in stocks. But as my career started to, keep rolling and times got a little bit tougher, we started to see that stock compensation start to dry up and they would just give us cash. Now, this after the fact is a clear sign that things were going to change, but I wasn't looking for those changes within the stock. I just thought I was going to get paid, go about my life, and it was just a monetary thing. But it's far more important than that. And so being able to foretell your career based on all of these little signs is super important. I do now.
Semiconductor stocks like ASML and Tokyo Electron fell too. Microsoft's AI-fueled cloud growth fell short of investor expectations earlier this week, and the stock is down about 11% over the last month, but it's still up about 10% year to date. The scale of capex by the big US tech companies, based on a belief that AI will transform the world, amounts to the biggest and fastest infrastructure rollout in history, according to the Financial Times. Big tech is expected to spend $500 billion over the next 2 years, much of it on data centers powered by NVIDIA GPUs. From a financial perspective, we have to ask who will benefit from this spending and when will the returns on investment start rolling in?
Good question.
Researchers from MIT argued in a recent report that the technology isn't designed to solve the complex problems that would justify the costs, which may not decline as many expect.
So that's a really good point. Basically, AI, the promise of AI that all these investors are making to like their stockholders is kind of just bullshit. AI is important, but it needs a lot more infrastructure for it to be valuable. At the moment, people are using AI to justify cutting people's jobs and to cut down headcount because they overhired. And AI is just a faceless technology. You still need the infrastructure of that is important to these legacy products for them to succeed. But legacy products, at the end of the day, they just hired way too many people and they couldn't really manage it. In the end, it will be a wash for them, but it will destroy a lot of lives in the end.
The Economist wrote last year about how the big tech firms were no longer showing up at campus recruiting events at top US colleges like Berkeley. Students who were hoping for internships at FANG companies were now talking to firms like Juniper Networks, an ancient company that had been founded all the way back in 1996. They report that some computer science majors have had their internships cancelled and those with job offers have had their start dates pushed back. Apparently, students are now seeking stable employment rather than big brand names on their CVs since the waves of layoffs started. One student told The Economist that she had realized that she hadn't actually wanted to work in big tech before the layoffs and was relieved she didn't get sucked into it. She hopes to work as a product designer at a small company where she can get solid experience rather than just chasing a bigger name.
Okay, we're close to the end here, but this is something very, very important. If you're a young designer trying to get into the market, there's nothing wrong about working at smaller companies. In fact, smaller companies are probably going to be a better fit for most people because they're going to be a lot more patient and a lot more understanding of you. And there's a lot more of them across the country. Working in big tech companies can be very stressful, but also the bigger problem with working in big tech companies, especially as a designer, is that you don't learn valuable skills. You learn the skills or the system or the process, I should say, of these companies. And when you try to go other places, not everyone works that way. My personal opinion is that if you're a designer and you're getting into it, work for an agency so you can see all kinds of different ways people work, so you can grow your skills and be a lot more scrappy versus going to a big tech company. It's seriously not worth it. Just work your ass off from a smaller company. And if you want to move up, you can. So let's finish this off.
Stanford professor Jeffrey Pfeiffer wrote in the Stanford Report that he's concerned that the tech layoffs could spread across other industries.
It will.
He wrote that layoffs are contagious across industries and within industries. So why did the big tech firms move so aggressively to cut staff? Well, a big part of it was just because they had simply overhired. Are layoffs the best move in a challenging business environment, or is there something else they could have done? Well, they could have announced goals to increase margins, for example, to shore up the stock price, but then they'd be held accountable to achieving those goals. When they announce layoffs and the clearing out of dead wood, they get to do that and then move on, having shown that they're serious about margins and costs.
That's bullshit.
For management, it's an easy fix. So if, as The Economist says, big tech no longer wants you, where can you go? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the majority of tech jobs in the United States are not at the big tech firms. The other sectors who hire tech workers may now be able to hire some top talent that previously they couldn't.
Go get it.
Some of the recently laid off tech workers might opt to start their own companies too and bring new products and ideas to the market. Most of today's tech giants grew out of the ashes of the dot-com bust. If you found this video interesting, you should watch my video on what's happening.
Thanks for watching. Honestly, I think this video was insanely important for me to make, and I hope it gave you some vulnerable insight as well. Right now, the job market is looking a lot like 2008 or 2009 during the Great Recession, and large companies would rather just juice their stock by firing or spinning vague technology than actually innovating because, well, they often can't make anything new. Well, maybe. So what does this mean for designers? Well, it means that getting hired is going to be a lot tougher. We will be required to do a lot more for less, sacrifice work-life balance, and give up remote work. And those who will succeed, they will need to embrace AI, multiple creative mediums, and have to become far more technical. So what can you do to thrive in this new landscape? Well, I have 3 things you can do. 1, keep learning new skills for the rest of your life. 2, sacrifice where you want to work to align with your bigger life goals, like having a family, stuff like that. 3, accept that most employers will see you as cogs in their machine. And this is how it's always been. However, if this bums you out, there is actually a lot of hope. The new era of AI-based design and entrepreneurship is coming quickly, so soon you, a friend, and some colleagues will be able to create your own products and take control of your life and your future career. Now, real quick, for those who are watching who have been affected by the layoffs, I want you to know that you guys are in good hands. You're talented, passionate, and capable. Just keep pushing forward and you'll find your next opportunity. And if you have been affected by the layoffs, let me know with a comment down below and let me know your feelings about it. Anyways, if this gets you juiced, join the Discord down below to learn, share, and find future colleagues. And if you like this video, let me know with a like, subscribe, and check out these videos right here. Until next time, everyone, love you, take care, plus minus, and see you next week.